Yesterday, on the 18th of January, we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Last week, on the 15th, he would celebrate his 92nd birthday. And besides his tremendous work for American civil rights, he was also an amazing public speaker. One of his most memorable speeches was, of course, the one that he gave in 1963, I Have a Dream.
I have a dream.
Which was entitled one of the most important and influential speeches in the 20th century by the journalist at The Guardian in London. Hello everyone, my name is Luminita, and today, in honor and memory of this distinct personality, I want to look through his most iconic speech and see what made it so special and what can you learn and do in your next presentation to spark it up. And the first thing that you have to do to make your audience engage with your ideas is to make your speech visionary. Therefore, you can use some things that have some double meanings or different interpretations.
A great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today.
In this example, standing in Abraham Lincoln's shadow can mean different things. For example, first of all, they were indeed next to his statue in Washington, D.C. So they were literally in his shadow. A different meaning can be that, or a different artistic meaning can be that they are protected by Abraham Lincoln because he also fought for Afro-Americans' rights, or generally civic rights. A different meaning can be that they are in the shadow, meaning that their movement, or what was happening right now, was undervalued comparing to his work, and his speech was there to bring it to the light or bring it out of the shadow. So there are many meanings, many interpretations, but connecting this literal meaning of being in the shadow of the statue with something else makes the audience think, makes it visionary in their head, and they will remember everything, and they will also give their own meaning or their own part of themselves to this speech. A different way to make your presentation more visionary is to use a lot of metaphors.
As a great beacon light of hope seared in the flames of withering injustice.
These are some of the best examples of metaphors that help the audience easier and better understand and consequently remember some very complex concepts. Moreover, again, by some personal associations, they give an extra meaning to these words, so the audience itself makes the speech even higher or more important or more influential. As a motivational and inspirational speaker, your biggest goal is to be in the hearts and minds of your audience. But therefore, you have to take the example of Martin Luther King Jr. presentation or speech and let others in your heart first in order to be able to enter theirs.
My poor little children one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Mentioning his own dream about his 4 little children made this whole speech more personal. And this is one of the things that I noticed that some other speakers are afraid to do in their speeches, because they're afraid that this will kind of diminish their influence and power. Wrong. Bringing some sensible note into a powerful presentation makes it even more influential, because people will feel closer to you. You are not anymore this figure on the stage. You are their friend. You are their relative. You are very close to them, and exactly that's why they start to trust you and they are ready to follow you and your ideas wherever they go. So if you want to inspire or motivate your audience to follow your visionary dream, if you want them to be engaged in a social cause, first of all, let them closer to you. Share a piece of some personal information. Show some feelings. Look a little bit more vulnerable like them. And by doing so, or letting them into your heart, you will be more than welcome in their heart, and they will really follow you and your ideas and concepts wherever they go. The third tip to make your next presentation or speech indeed impactful is to highlight your main ideas or takeaways by using breaks.
Black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Every speech, even the most empowering and powerful and influential, every speech in the world at some point gets monotonous, where people stop following every single word that you say. This happens, this is normal, you don't have to fear or fight it. You have to understand it and use it to your own advantage. That's why if you have a speech and you really think it's important, stop putting emphasis on everything and expect people to really listen for 10 minutes for every single word that you say. No. You have to find some key things that you really want people to remember, some must remember, must haves, and then put an emphasis on them by using some breaks. Of course, depending on the style and tone of your speech or presentation, you can highlight the main ideas differently. And when I say highlight, I mean put an emphasis on it or make it stick out of the rest of the speech. And you can do this by speaking more loudly, by speaking more slowly, by moving and so on. I talked about it a little bit in my previous video about presentations. You can check it out here. But when we're speaking about really empowering and strong kind of a speech, you know, these ones where you almost shout to people, the one that you really send energy to your audience, in this case, the best and the most proven way to really highlight some blocks or ideas is by putting some breaks before and after this main point. So you are speaking about something, and then you say this, because that was important. And the bonus tip for today that we've learned from I Have a Dream speech of Martin Luther King Jr. is to repeat to remember. And I know I said it, but in this case, you don't repeat your speech to remember it, but you repeat certain words or phrases that are again key phrases or key takeaways in order for your audience to really remember them. So you again highlight some ideas, but not by putting breaks between or at the beginning or the end of it, but by really saying the same phrase or the same combination of words again and again and again and again. For example, 100 years later.
100 years later. 100 years later. 100 years later.
Or with this faith.
With this faith. With this faith. With this faith.
And of course, the most well-known phrase, I have a dream.
I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream.
Besides making these phrases or combination of words really remembered and sticking to our mind years after, also when you think back to the speech, you don't really remember every single word that he said or every single idea that he said. But because he gave this blog a structure using this, first of all, 100 years later block, then I have a dream block, then with this faith block, you remember this consequence or this relationship between the part. 100 years later, now everything is bad. Or everything is not as good as we want it to. I have a dream for the future, how I picture it. And with this faith is basically a plan to action or a call to action. Now everything is not as good as we want it to. I have a dream that everything will be great. And this is how we achieve it, or this is how we transition from today to tomorrow. Of course, there are a ton of other things that made this speech so iconic. His tone, the way he speaks, his rhetorics, his eye contact with the audience, everything in sum made this speech really remembered and quoted all over again, over years. But as a wrap up, the 3 things that I want you to remember from this speech, or the 4 things with the bonus point or the bonus tip, is first of all, make it visionary. Make people not only hear your speech, but also see it in the back of their head. Second of all, let people in your heart, or let people closer to you to get in their heart or get closer to them. The third tip was to highlight your main points by putting them into some breaks, or put them some breaks before and after them. And the bonus tip was to highlight your main ideas by repeating them, or repeat to remember. If you like this format of me analyzing some well-known speeches or presentations, let me know about it in the comment section below. Also, by writing there what other speech do you want me to analyze. Give this video a thumbs up if you want me to continue this series or this format of the videos. Click on the bell button to get notified every single time when I post a new video. If you want to learn today even more about presentation and public speaking, click here and here to join my growing community. Remember that communication builds connections and miscommunication builds a mess. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.